Ain't nobody living ever gonna stop me as I walk down that freedom highway. Ain't nobody living ever gonna make me turn back now. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, y'all help me. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. Thank you.
Welcome again to everyone here in person today and to everyone who is visiting our service from home. And we open, as we don't usually, today with Reverend Pat singing and playing for us. We Unitarians of Lake Norman are an open and inclusive congregation. Our members walk diverse paths to find meaning and purpose, but we're united by our firm belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and by the responsibility to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. My name is Sandy McFeely, and I've been an active member of this congregation since 2013. As I said, we have our minister, Pat Jobe, with us today. He will kick around and very likely take a supportive position on the question of what if Jesus had been a woman? I think that's an important question. I've thought it over from several angles during the week, and I thought it might have worked, but only if the offices were appointed and not elected. We start our services and other activities by lighting a candle inside a chalice and speaking words that call us to that occasion. Please join me in saying today's chalice lighting words, which are in your order of service. We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. Have we missed your opening words?
No. I have opening words.
Pat has opening words. Okay.
But I must say that nothing I have to say will surpass your one-liner right there. Talk about getting the thunder stolen. I went to church at Bluffton this morning via Zoom, and one of the members walked in and said to the minister, "I am so grateful for this place." I want to add my word of welcome to Ann and Sandra. If you don't think there's something special, just watch how people respond to them after the service. They've already had the Dickens hugged out of them. They'll probably have it happen again. And to Sherry and to Barbara, please keep coming back, and we will hug you even more. I know you've both been hugged already this morning, but we'll hug you any more. And Carol, if you didn't get a hug, we've got one waiting for you. It'll just cash in after the service. Please don't feel powerless. Give to the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, the National Immigration Law Center. When I was at church at Bluffton, a very prominent activist in the congregation said, "Give to Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, the Immigration Law Center." And he said that list after I had already made mine. Yes. Yes. And anybody else you can find who is part of the active resistance. Our feelings of powerlessness empower those we oppose. Our feelings of powerlessness empower those we oppose. We have got to feel something else. We need to see ourselves as being again on the right side of history. We were when slavery needed to be banned, when women needed the right to vote, when unions were organizing, when Bush was preparing to invade Iraq, a failed war that cost the lives of 600,000 civilians. And we must be historically right again as the ACLU and other groups prepare to fight the new government in the courts. If you feel powerless, do something that makes you feel powerful. Come to Friday Action Hour via Zoom. I think we had 4 there Friday. Did we have 4 there from Lake Norman? Yeah, I think we did. Come to Friday Action Hour via Zoom. The link is always in the newsletter, 11 o'clock Friday morning. And join UUs across North Carolina who join North Carolina Jews for Justice, the Poor People's Campaign, and more than a dozen other organizations who work effectively to oppose the worst in the new government's evil plans. And keep coming back here on Sunday afternoons. At the end of today's service, we will sing "We Shall Overcome," and I beg you to sing it like you mean it. Now, rather than go over there and sit down, which I normally do after I've done opening words, and before Teresa plays our centering music, I want to open the floor again. There are lots and lots of stones left to put in the bowl. Come and share your grief and your fear and your anger. I promise I'll stay on the clock.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
This is what I was going to say and didn't. Since this is supposed to be a spiritual organization, I can't say the words I want to say, but I will talk to the stone.
We heard him, Regina.
Well, I'm sad, depressed, feel powerless, and all the rest of it. I'd like to take them all and throw it at them instead of put them in here, but I won't. I just hope somebody, Superman, somebody, whatever, flies down from wherever they live and fixes this mess, because it is a mess.
One thing that has come to me after the election, and I mentioned it earlier today, when Richard Nixon was reelected, I felt a lot of despair for the American people, for our system. But we overcame that. We survived. We're going to do it again. We're strong.
Hi, I'm Tim. I feel a lot of anger and grief. We've been really struggling the last few days. And it wasn't Richard Nixon, even though I was voting age. It was Reagan that had me fearful, and we overcame Reagan. But I think this administration has a lot more things aligned than those 2 presidents had aligned to support them. Anyway, let's overcome them. Thank you.
I was so angry and disappointed in my country that I spent the day after the election eating junk food all day long. I did nothing but sit on the couch eating peanut M&Ms and chips and anything else that I normally avoid because it just consumed me as I consumed it. But I'm one of the lucky ones. My entire family, all of my friends are outspoken believers in the kind of America I want it to be. And I can't help but think how difficult this is for all of those people, and you may be some of them, who are so isolated from certain family members and friends because they simply don't see what you see.
A number of you may not know that Teresa's husband is the senior pastor at is it Trinity United Church of Christ, I think is the right name. Their services on YouTube. I know they broadcast. I would invite you to look up today's service. It was very comforting while expressing all the frustrations that we all feel, because Trinity welcomes everybody just like this church does. And as part of his service, he played a posting by another minister who was expressing all of the frustrations that we feel, but he said what he is witnessing is the death throes of white supremacy and the birth pangs of something much better. Look up that Trinity United Church of Christ. Look up that service. It's very comforting.
The UCCs, they call themselves UCCs, and we call them Unitarians Considering Christ.
Always the optimist. I'm thankful North Carolina has a governor.
I'm normally at those services this morning in Concord, but today I had a day off. And I missed being with my church family there because they are open and affirming. And I'm so glad that I'm here with you today. I'm afraid my family is rather in a rift.
My name's Mary, and this morning I got a note from a friend of ours, a family friend who lived across the street from us, was where the kids were born, blah, blah, all that. Dear, dear friends, and care about Jim and I over the moon, and they're Trumpers. And we don't talk politics. And she's anti-vaccine and she works in the health industry. We don't talk about that either. They love Jim to death. They care for me a great deal. So the thing this morning was I got an email saying he is an ex-Marine, as is Jim. And he's always, since the first time he ever met, and this has been years ago, always gives Jim a gift for being a Marine. And tomorrow is that day. So of course, this morning he said, "What do you want for dinner? Pizza or wings?" And or something else. I guess my point is that they will come to the farm at 6 tonight and deliver that. And we're going to hug them. And we're going to say hello to the girls who are, like teenager type, young teenagers. And it breaks my heart. And I don't understand my feeling, but it breaks my heart. But they're still friends.
Yes.
They're still, they would do anything for us.
Yes.
As I got to tell you, we would them. So it just brings tears to my eyes.
Couple of different stones. Over the weekend was the anniversary of Kristallnacht. I think one of our visitors was from Germany, and I think that came at a very, very poignant time in our own history. And you've heard so many people probably say, "Why didn't the good people of Germany do something? Why didn't the good people of the U.S. do something?" And they did not. Also, another stone for Veterans Day. We're entering into a government period where there's not a lot of respect for veterans. So I think we need to enforce that. And then trying to just keep your act together while this is going on. I've had conversations with several friends around the country. One woman had a suggestion. She read a series of articles. This was back in the 90s, and I'll try and find this author. It was a woman who was born in Venezuela and lived in Venezuela from the 60s on through the early 90s. And she talked to several other people in South American countries, and she wrote these articles about what they did to try to survive the dictatorships. Things that helped them, how they came together. And I just started reading it, but it sounds like it'd be very good resources. And also, Rick Steves, who's the travel guru, you probably know. And Rick has spent a lot of his life in Europe. He has, it may be a podcast now, but it's also on YouTube. He has done about a 90-minute special about what life in Europe was like under fascism. Because let's face it, many people don't know. So if you don't know, or if you feel somebody who doesn't know, pass those along to them. I think it will help.
We love it when first-time visitors speak.
It's
Love it.
hard. It's hard. You would think after teaching school for 40 years, this would come easily for me, but it doesn't. I don't know why. Kids are different. One of my greatest joys in life was teaching. And I taught in Florida, and then I moved to very far west in North Carolina, and I wasn't going to teach anymore. I was going to pursue a different path for my retirement, and then I had to go back to work. So I taught in that area for 10 years. The majority of the time that I taught U.S. history. And in the mountains, I was teaching U.S. history and ancient cultures, and I loved every minute of it. In 2016, I did this unit with the students on the elections, because I thought, well, maybe if they do some research about past presidents, they'll learn what it means to be a president, what these people represented, and why they became president, and what they accomplished and what they didn't. And well, at that point, I started being watched by the administration, and I'm sure parents were calling. But I went forward, and the kids did this amazing job. And long story short, they did an all-school election. I knew what the results were going to be. I knew where I was. And, then the administration was standing over, and teachers were standing over the shoulders of my students, watching and making sure that there wasn't something going awry. And, we got through that. And then I went to the Women's March, and that was the end of it. And I knew by the end of that school year, I had to retire. And, after 40 years, you probably should. But I cried for weeks trying to decide whether to do that or not. Well, I don't live in that area anymore, thank goodness, because it's very different. They were preaching from the pulpit, and I knew it. And the kids were coming in with these ideas about things that were not true. So anyway, I do miss that. And I saw this coming in 2016. I think we've been fighting for a little while, but now we're desperate. And now it's over. And you're right, we are going to become a very different kind of country with a different kind of leadership. And how do we navigate that? I don't know. And that's what I've been crying about for days. Then I'll feel a little bit better. And it's like this roller coaster. However, my joy is something I witnessed the other night. And my daughter, who's in her 40s, has been extremely active helping with the DNC and, knocking on doors. And she organized her own I can't even say it, coalition. And I got to witness her in action election night. She had set up a booth with the help of her friends and decorated it. And there was food and water and information. And I don't know if you all saw them, but the blue votes that you got and she had us all stationed around the parking lot. And this was I gotta remember where I was because I'm not real familiar with the area yet, near UNC. So the greater majority of people who came to vote were students, first-time voters. And I know I'm going on and on here, and I'll call it quits here in a minute.
We'll help you with that.
Thank you. So, I saw these very excited young people, and I'd say 99% of the people that were in line that night and that day, over 13 hours, and the line was still long, were so excited about voting for their first time. And they were Democrats. There are only very few people that didn't take the blue votes. And I need these. I gotta quit. Anyway,
Put a handful in there.
two things that I witnessed that made me excited was the generation that my daughter is in and the generation of these young people who now will be the ones leading. I think, we've done a lot. I'm quitting. We've done a lot.
You said you didn't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. I have
ACLU, Planned Parenthood,
They're going to decimate nonprofits.
National Immigration Law Center.
I got you. They're going to try to.
They're going to try.
Okay.
They're going to try.
You're right.
I'm Barbara again. I originally came up here to support Sherry, but I'll speak a little bit. I came for myself, one. I've witnessed a number of people, numerous people be in a state of exhaustion, grief, due to the elections, helplessness, hopelessness. And I've been seeing a therapist forever by choice. And I told her, I said, I choose love. It's not affecting me the way a lot of people seem to be affected. But I really wish, and you can't force anyone else, you can't make them see, but I'm a believer in one person can make a difference. And
Yes,
we can each,
absolutely.
we can create something. We are the change we want to see. We are the hope, we are the vision, we are the light. I'm a mother of 4 daughters. 4 adult
You have a lot of
daughters,
hope.
which is interesting because they are I think they're numb. And it hurts, racism, sexism, ageism, everything. And I'm determined to focus on the goal, focus on the positive, focus on the hope, focus on the vision I want to see. And I do believe it's temporary. When he mentioned birth pangs, I see it, I feel it.
Good.
It is
Great.
birth pangs for a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
will not give up on love now. No fear, don't you turn like Orpheus, just stay here. Hold me in the dark, and when the day appears, we'll say we did not give up on love today. I'll show you God, restore your faith. I'll try and somehow make a meaning of the poison in this place. Convince you love, don't breathe it in. You were written in the stars that we could see, and it has no meaning, no guarantee. It's just the promise of a day. I know that some may never see, but that's enough. If the bottom drops out, I hope my love was someone else's solid ground. Don't stop trying to find me here amidst the chaos. Oh, I know it's blinding, there's no way out. Say it out loud. We will not give up on love now. No fear, don't you turn like Orpheus, just stay out here. Hold me in the dark, and when the day appears, we'll say we did not give up on love today. We'll say we did not give up on love today.
Jim Price mentioned the dog fence bill yesterday. I wanted to bring my fragrant T-shirt with me to affirm that I was there yesterday, and I've missed a lot of them, and I'm sorry I have. But I was there, and I brought help with me. I brought a guy who actually worked, so that always gives me extra points, bring somebody who works. I didn't count either, Jim, but there were 9 members of this congregation who were there yesterday.
The Harley Carolinas, and you guys are here, came out to our annual Rural Dog Trials, the sheepdog trials, and they were there both days. They set up a booth. They had a nice looking booth and a lot of information, and several volunteers who came out, and everybody from the organization really enjoyed you guys being there, and I hope you got some new volunteers and raised some money. And one of my dogs got to go into the booth to serve as the ambassador.
That is great. That is great. Yeah. Yeah. And we had 2 first-timers yesterday, too. So we had 4 first-timers. 3. Yeah. Come on, Claudia. You know I got old eyes. Yeah. And one was from the sheep. Great. Wonderful. Okay. So, Sherry, Barbara, dog fence. Keep your eyes peeled. Yeah. There is an element of the absurd in asking a hypothetical question. The Buddha said, never ask a hypothetical question. Apparently, he was more interested in what is rather than what could have been. I'm going to repeat that last sentence because I think it goes to the heart of what matters in all our lives. Apparently, he was more interested in what is rather than what could have been, what might have been. But Helen Patil, who is celebrating her 60th wedding anniversary and gets most of the credit for it lasting 60 years, she asked the question, and I'll be John Brown if it wasn't a good question. What if Jesus had been a woman? All right, let's begin by eliminating the possibility that Jesus was a historical figure. Reading the Gospels and the book of Acts, you simply cannot find a figure whose historical existence can be validated. Now, if anybody wants to jump up and run out of the room, that's okay. The Jesus we find in these books and in the preaching of today's churches is a mythological creature. It does mean, that does not mean that he did not walk the earth, eat, sleep, and interact with real people in real situations. It does mean, and listen to me very carefully, it does mean that everything we know about him, we glean from the faith documents written by people who believed amazing things about him and did their writing out of a sense that needed to record their faith, not the facts. So now we're going to rewrite the record. At the age of 30, a woman who worked with her father in a local carpenter's shop walks into a temple, picks up the Torah, and begins to read from the book of Isaiah. She declares the acceptable year of the Lord, a time when all debts are forgiven, all land returns to its original owners, and all prisoners are set free. After she reads these radical, unnerving, upsetting words, she looks out at the crowd and says, "In your presence, this has been fulfilled today." And they went nuts. Their thought was, collectively, that they would take her and throw her off a cliff. Luckily, she had an invisibility cloak, and she put it on the way Harry Potter did, and she walked out of the crowd. Growling and mumbling and shouting. Funny thing is, she disappears and walks out of the crowd in the same way that the male character does in Luke's gospel. Had either of them not walked out of that crowd, the story would have ended a lot sooner. But wait, if Jesus had been Jessica instead of Jesus, she in all likelihood would never have been allowed to read from the Torah at all. The mere touching of the scroll would have gotten her into deep dubers because she was a woman. But Helen Patil has given us a great gift in asking the question, so let's run with it. Under her invisibility cloak, she escapes, and she begins recruiting disciples. As she talks to fishermen and tax collectors, she is laughed at and told to go home to her husband or her father, or whichever one is responsible for keeping her at home. She has no better luck with their wives, so she moves on to the young women who are begging and offering themselves as prostitutes in the street. And in a matter of days, we have found the Unitarian Jesus that Doug Wall wanted to talk about a few months back when he asked me to talk about the Unitarian Jesus. Only now her name is Jessica. And she is flat stirring up a hullabaloo unlike anything ever seen in the ancient or modern world. Unlike the sanitized Jesus, who would be welcome in any country club, we now have a radical like nobody's business. And it is because she is a woman. It is because she is a woman. I mentioned the sanitized Jesus because you all are familiar with him. He does belong to country clubs. He does watch the Dow Jones Industrial Average. He belongs to the Republican Party. He put his hands on our president-elect in a famous painting that has now made its way all over the internet. Not at all like Jessica. Not at all like Jessica. She is drawing crowds and talking about turning over every tradition in the neighborhood. Not only does she believe the poor should be fed, the prisoners set free, the widows and orphans cared for, but she is also a woman. This is a time when women's liberation was as far-fetched as rockets to the moon or carrying a computer around in your pocket. As my mother used to say, golly gee willikers. Helen Patil has given us a Jessica who not only cannot be sanitized, she can barely be believed in. Folks taking notes for some future book might well be tempted to turn her into a man before the story becomes too wild to sell. Luke, who is credited with writing the book of Acts, predicts that the world will be turned upside down by the believers. Miss Jessica does it every time she draws a crowd. Every time she starts talking, in a time when no woman would think of being a doctor or a lawyer or a camel driver, she is changing the world. This dame is talking and taking on the very fabric of reality. The very fabric of reality. What we can imagine is real. What used to be that is no longer. She has changed everything. And it is not just that she is an outlier with absolutely no authority to speak, teach, or read the sacred writings. She is also a woman. It would be just as unsettling as a talking donkey or a burning bush with marching orders. Or maybe it would be worse. Maybe it'd be worse in the ancient Jewish world because they've already had a talking donkey and they've already had a burning bush telling Moses to go down and set my people free. This woman who has recruited prostitutes and street beggars into her ministry is now telling us that we will know the truth and the truth will set us free. You can almost hear Jerry Lee Lewis singing, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. And how do we call her a Unitarian, Doug Wall? How do we call her a Unitarian? Well, she is preaching the inherent worth and dignity of all. She is shaking and rattling the cages of tyranny. She is talking about a way, a truth, and a life that has its authority in the sky, not in the Roman army that has occupied the countryside, and not the believers in religious traditions. She parodies self-righteous keepers of this rule or that rule. She asks us, who will walk by a man bleeding in a ditch. She makes ruthless fun of people who will wipe the outside of a cup and drink the filth within. She is kind, and she works miracles, even for a Roman soldier whose daughter has died. Yet Miss Jessica brings her back to life. The miracle speaks not only of her powers to upend the established order of life and death, but also her willingness to show compassion to the despised enemies, the Romans. If Regina was telling this story, she might use another word in front of Romans. Heaven help us. What would such a woman do along the Gaza Strip today, or among the victims of Hamas who died on October 7th? We know little of how women were executed in ancient times, but doubtless some were crucified. Modern liberal scholars of Christianity don't put as much emphasis on crucifixion and resurrection, in part because stories of resurrection were fairly common among other mythologies. Granted, the conservatives cling to this part of the story as critical. Assume for a moment that Jessica did come to an untimely death, maybe at the hands of the authorities who hated her for interpreting the prophets so literally, for rattling the cages of the established order, for thumbing her nose at those who would hate transgendered people or deport immigrants. It is hard to imagine that such a woman might be seen to have lived on in the imaginations of those who had come to love her, those who had eaten her miraculous bread when she fed the 5,000, those who had drunk her miraculous wine upstairs in that little room before she was killed. Is it hard to imagine that maybe her physical body was never brought back to life, but her story lives on? Can you hear the beggars and prostitutes whispering to one another, "She lives. She lives." And can you hear her hope for a life beyond this one, as witches and heretics were burned at the stake, as soldiers died in the Crusades and the church wars of the Reformation? Can you almost feel her presence among so many tragic wars and other senseless killings as she says, boys, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. The contemporary male Jesus, the one talked about and believed in by hundreds of millions all over the world, is as varied as the sands of the sea. He is diabolical when he urges death on LGBTQ folks in places like Uganda. He is magnanimous when he gives spirited energy to doctors, nurses, attendants, yes, even ministers who heal the sick and feed the hungry. You, being Unitarians, may reject him if he favors violence, allows some to starve while others eat too much, allows pollution, reckless consumerism, deadening distraction from service by things like television, movies, and professional sports. You, being Unitarians, may embrace him when he is a tool in the hands of compassion, care, justice, and love. But consider for a moment, if Jesus had been a woman, if the name had been Jessica instead of Jesus, you too might be tempted to whisper, "She lives. She lives." You ask me how I know she lives. She lives within my heart.
Are you up for a talk back?
Sure.
You can say no if you want to.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Let's check the time. We're in trouble.
And the new thing about that is what?
What?
The new thing about that is what?
What? Y'all, come on. Come on. If you got something to say, come on.
Comment, challenge, question? Tell us how you feel as the official sermon was going on.
It was great. Thank you.
It was unsettling.
Good, good.
It's important to be forced to think a little differently. Does anybody want to weigh in on this?
Helen, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was such a gift to ask the question.
And you gave us a gift right back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was well answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, fabulous. And now, possibly an even greater challenge is on Teresa to reflect all of this for us.
This is called L'Orage, or The Storm by Bermuda.
That was quite perfect, Teresa. This fellowship is important to all of us. The contributions we make today allow us to sustain and grow our congregation and to reach out to our community, both nearby and in the larger world. Your giving affirms our commitment to each other and to the community. And may I urge the viewers at home to switch briefly to the main page of our website and just hit the donate button to join in spirit with the in-person members. With grateful hearts, we receive these gifts. May they encourage us to live lives of integrity, compassion, and peace. We're also grateful to all the people who make possible our Sunday services, all our various community activities, and presenting us to the outside world through our newsletter and through YouTube. And that includes everyone who cheers us on just by being in these chairs today, or in their even more comfortable Barca loungers at home. Let's look for a second at the announcements in the order of service. I gather yesterday's fence build was not only crowded, but successful. It was a rebuild for Bruno, whose previous housing had gotten burned out. And the animal ministry is always there. Your house burns, Bruno? We're here to rebuild it. The social suppers. Do we have a place picked out?
I think we'll go to McAllister's and Cornelius.
Okay, McAllister's and Cornelius, in case anyone at home wants to join us. Okay. And the movie on Tuesday is Small Things Like These, and it starts at a slightly later hour of 4 o'clock. 4:30.
4:30. It's a late one. For us.
Have I missed any announcements I shouldn't have missed? One small one, Lynn has sent around to the board a list of the wonderful ideas and proposals and wishes from the climate revival 2 weeks ago. And it's a wonderful, fascinating, much greater variety of things than I expected. And the board will be working on where we go from here. So stay tuned for more there. Our closing song today is number 169, We Shall Overcome. Please stand as you're willing and able.
Our closing word comes from Susan B. Anthony. It's just one word. It comes from Susan B. Anthony and Betty Friedan and Bella Abzug, Gloria Steinem, Sandy McFeely, Marge Flowers, Linda Heidenberg, and Mary Nicholson, Claudia Perkinson, Loretta Fawdry, Nancy Embry, Pat Wall, Helen Patil. Just one word, justice.
We close our services by extinguishing the light in the chalice and saying together the words in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.